Don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make up a way for yourself to live.
Yeah.
Make up a way for yourself to play. Make up a way for yourself to think. You know, just create a life for yourself.
David, thanks so much for joining us here. I am so excited to sit down with you because of the inspiration you gave me in 1976 at the Dick Grove School. Coming out here as just a young kid, I came to a master class. You sat down, it was 1976. So the band had already been kind of out, heard about the band, followed the band. And I was just blown away, not just so much about your playing, because your playing, which we'll talk about, is that's a whole incredible thing. Your personality and the knowledge that you had and how you shared it was so informative that it gave me an incredible amount of information that I knew what my direction would be. And you have continued to do this for the 44 years that I've known you, so I thank you so much for joining us here.
Well, it's a pleasure, man. I mean, this is cool. I'm glad I'm on the list here. This is an honor. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Just for the audience here, the beginning stage of how music entered your life. I mean, you know, you were born in Oakland. You started playing drums at a young age, 10, was it?
10 years old, yes. Yeah. In elementary school, you know, the school band programs, when they had those in those days,
when
right?
They had those, yeah.
That was really a good thing because, you know, it exposed you to all kinds of different types of music. So my introduction to music was not rock and roll. You know, it was concert band and marching band and, you know, a more formal, you know, classical kind of setting.
Yeah.
It kind of shaped the way that I view all music. You know, because it helped me to understand that there's so much in this, right? Yeah. It helped me to, I think, have interest in all different kinds of music. So I can't really say that there's music I don't care for. I just appreciate all of it, you know, and it's just everywhere. And so growing up in the Bay Area was musical paradise in a way, you know, because there was so much cool music going on all the time. And so it just influenced all the players there, you know.
It's amazing to see how the educational program, what it was, and how many great musicians came from that. Unfortunately, the challenge now was it's not that way now, where schools are pulling back on the music programs, and it's going to damage the music scene as we know it in the next future years.
When I came up, you know, being in a band was kind of the way that you made your reputation, you know, you made your bones in it. To me, that was the real way to learn how to play music. You interact with other people, you learn how to interpret songs, you learn different styles, you kind of have all these influences that you build your playing on, and you do that in a band setting, you know, playing with other people. Music is a social act. Today it's very different, you know, because there's people that have millions of views on YouTube and don't even play with a band. You know, so it's a whole interesting other way that people are getting to music today. Right. It's very, very different. I don't have any bad feelings about any of that. I mean, I think it's all cool, you know, because that's the way that it is right now, you know. But I still think the best way to really learn music and have it to be the deepest experience for you is if you're in a band.
So at this point, were you playing drum set now? Were you getting involved with drum set and starting to meet
Drum
other
set
musicians?
didn't happen until high school. It was for the first 10 years or so, I was playing concert band, you know, concert band and marching band and that kind of stuff. That sort of thing.
You were developing a certain level of chops when you were playing at that point, especially in marching band, right?
Yeah, but in a very, you know, basic kind of way, you know, 5-stroke rolls, 9-stroke rolls, things like that, you know, and learning to play cadences, real simple cadences and flams, you know, all of those kind of things, you know, and learning how to read, which was, you know, I think really an important tool, you know, and I'm so thankful that I can do that because I use that in my music life every day. It provides a level of literacy, you know, in your music life that you can't get otherwise. You know, so I'm so thankful for that, you know. And then the drum set came when I was 15.
How'd that evolve?
We were in the band room at school and I was watching an older kid. He was playing a drum set and I'd never really seen it up, you know, that close. I take that back. My cousin got married at the Sons of Italy Hall in San Francisco, and they had a band, live band, and I was just enthralled with the drummer. I just was blown away with this guy, you know. And that was like a few years earlier. Yeah. But I never really had the opportunity to sit and play a drum set myself until that day in the band room at school. And so the kid's playing these rock and roll beats, and he leaves the room, and I sat down and tried to do it myself, and I could do some of it, what I was hearing.
Yeah.
And it was, wow, it was powerful, you know. And so it just kind of developed from there, you know. I began playing the drum set.
So did you end up getting your own kit at one point to begin to start to study?
Well, my parents got me a drum set when I was a senior in high school. They bought me a drum set because I was starting to get kind of serious about it. But there was a mailman who was in the Air Force Reserve, and he was a pal of my father's because he would deliver mail to my dad's store. And so I knew him and his brother. And so when he would go away in the summertime to do the Air Force Reserve, he'd let me use his drum set. And it was just so cool. You know, I had this drum set in my basement, you know, really, really nice drum set. But then when I was a senior in high school, my music teacher told my parents, you know, that I should get more serious, because I was really not interested in school at all. You know, I was kind of just wanted to mess around. You know, I won't use bad words here, you know, drop any F-bombs or anything, but that's what I was, you know. And so I didn't care about school, and so I think that, you know, my music teacher encouraged my parents to get me involved more in music, encouraged me to get more in music, because I was getting ready to leave high school. My music teacher, Mr. Campana, James Campana, wow. Really, really great guy, and his assistant, Tony Caviglia, another paisano. And so they encouraged me to get some music lessons. So they hooked me up with this really reputable teacher there in Oakland. His name is Dr. Harry Bartlett.
Interesting.
He was a teacher at Mills College in Oakland. He played in the Oakland Symphony.
So he was a legit player, or was he a drum set player?
Yeah, he was. That was my introduction to stick control and, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I hated it because I didn't like practicing. I just wanted to play. I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to work. I just wanted to play, right? And so it really wasn't that great of an experience. And so the teacher told my dad one night, he said, you know, your son's never really going to go far in this, you know. He doesn't really have very much ability. And so why don't we just stop lessons?
Really?
Yeah. You know, God bless him. He was a real nice man, but, you know, you can't do anything with a kid that doesn't want to do anything for himself, you know. So I remember the ride home that night. My father, he didn't say anything to me about it. Nothing. We just, like, normal, you know. And he just kept encouraging me because he just let that go.
So now were there other teachers that you started to seek out, or were there drummers you were listening to?
I went in the military, you know, after I got out of high school.
Right, so now the Vietnam War is in its peak of what's happening.
Yeah, that was rolling pretty hard, and so everybody got drafted, you know, and that kind of thing, you know, if you were draft age. You know, prior to that, I had started playing in bands right about the time that I got out of high school. You know, I met some guys, and we had our own band, and, you know, my father would rent the little hall there close to where I live now, and rent it. We'd have all the kids in town would come and all this stuff, and we'd play. It was really cool, you know. And my father would do security, you know, in those days, you know, when you had to have something like that compared to today, completely different. But it was just a great experience, you know. And then I went in the military. Prior to that, also, I had auditioned for the Army band at the Presidio in San Francisco, and I didn't pass the audition, so that was out. And so I enlisted in the Air Force so that I wouldn't have to go in the Army. Because at that time, if you were drafted, you could enlist in any of the other services prior to your draft date to fulfill your military obligation. Yeah. So that's what I did. And so I enlisted in the Air Force, and I was going to went in as a clerk just to get it done so I could come back and resume my life, you know. All the guys that were in the draft, they were going to Vietnam. There was no question. That's where you were going. And so that just scared the hell out of me. I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So at basic training, Air Force basic training, some guy comes in, some sergeant. He said, "Who plays music around here? You know, anybody play an instrument?" See, I raised my hand. "You want to be in the band?" So he brought me over, and I auditioned. I still don't know how I mean, I couldn't play hardly, it was terrible. You know, a few little things I could do, you know, some beats and stuff. But when my orders came after basic training, it said Air Force Band.
The 724th Air Force Band.
724th Air Force Band at McChord Air Force Base in Tacoma, Washington. And I learned so much there. It was such a terrific experience. You know, we had a great concert band. I learned, you know, a lot about concert percussion, mallet percussion, all these different things. My reading improved because we'd sight read every day and all of that kind of thing, you know. And then there were other groups too. You know, had jazz groups, small groups, you know, marching band, great, fabulous symphonic band. And then I got involved in playing with local musicians and involved in the kind of the, you know, the soul music scene, funk music there that was happening. There was a lot of really great players, you know. That's what I wanted to do because I had seen James Brown so years earlier, and that kind of changed my life, and I wanted to be like that. So, you know, it gave me an opportunity to start getting into those things, you know.
So you go to hear James Brown. What kind of influence did the band have, and who was playing drums at the time?
I believe Clayton Filiaw. And it was the same band that was on the live, James Brown Live at the Apollo recording, that real classic live recording. They were playing at the San Jose Civic Auditorium, and so my friends took me to see James Brown. They say, "You ever seen James Brown?" "No, man." So you got to check this out. So we went in there in the afternoon, and the door was open. We went in, they're rehearsing. We walk up to the stage. Nobody said anything to us. Sat there and watched them rehearse, watched them play, watched the show that night. I'd never seen anything like that before. It kind of hit me the same way like when I saw Count Basie's band. I saw Count Basie and Sonny Payne was playing drums. And so it just hit me the same way. I think, oh man, this is so great, you know. It kind of stirs something within you, you know, and so you realize, well, this is kind of what I want to do. So I ended up being kind of this hybrid of all these other different things that I like, you know.
Kind of amazing. So you get out of the Air Force, come back. What was the next step at that point?
Well, I had gotten out early, 6 months early, to go to school and started getting involved playing with people. So I was subbing for a drummer in a band named The Reality Sandwich. They were all drug dealers and, you know, weirdos and, you know, crazy people, you know, but Mike Clark was also one of the subs. So that's where I met Mike. And so we both taken turns subbing in this band. This was at downtown Oakland, at an area called Jack London Square, and they had all these clubs.
So there's a live music scene going on at that point.
There's a whole scene going on down there. The place that we played was called the On Broadway. And it's at 4th and Broadway in Oakland. The building is still there. The two of the Tower guys, Mick Gillette and Skip Mesquite, they used to come and they would sit in. Tower was already happening. So they would come and sit in. So one night they come in and they say, I was playing, they said, "Are you interested in coming to check us out? We're getting ready to make a drummer change." And this was Tower Power. So sure, I'd love to check it out. You know, so I went over here. They were playing at Keystone Corner in San Francisco. And at that time, Keystone Corner was like a rock club. And so I went in there, man, they were just hitting it. It was so great. They were doing like some original songs, real obscure cover songs, and arranging them in their own way. They already had a really cool vibe. Rocco was, you know, 18 years old. He's the bass player, and he really helped the sound of the band. He kind of gave the band a really just cool vibe and a cool sound, really different. You know, I knew I was going to be in it even before they knew I was going to be in it. It was all the kind of music I grew up listening to. They had horns, and it was all this stuff right there, you know. And they had won a record deal at the Fillmore. On Tuesday nights, they used to have this thing called Sounds of the City, and it was kind of like a battle of the bands, audition night. And so the prize was a record deal with one of Bill Graham's labels. They had won this record deal on Fillmore Records. So Bill had Fillmore Records and San Francisco Records. Yeah, our deal was on San Francisco Records. One was distributed by Atlantic, the other was distributed by Columbia. Cold Blood was on the Fillmore label, and we were on the San Francisco Records label. And so Bill was our first manager.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Emilio, you know, Mimi, the leader of the band, he came down to the On Broadway one night, sat in, and we connected, and then I went and played with the band at their rehearsal place. They had this little rehearsal hall that they were sharing with a band called the Loading Zone, another real famous Bay Area band at the time, in Berkeley.
It just worked.
We started rolling right then, you know.
Tell me about the first time you sat with the band to play with them. Were you nervous? Did you know the arrangement? Was there preparation? Did you just go in there and
just played?
Jam? You
just played. Just went in and played. I mean, I didn't remember being nervous or anything, you know. It wasn't anything like that. I was excited. It was just a cool thing, you know. They were playing cool music, and I wanted to be part of it. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. You know, there was no doubt in my mind, none whatsoever.
Boy, that influence of James Brown and Count Basie. You kind of had a little bit of both of them in there.
Well, how it ended up being was I just played Tower just like playing in a big band, but it's with 16th notes.
Yeah.
So the same way, you know, section figures, ensemble figures, you know, set up things, you know, build parts based on what you're hearing and backup solos. I mean, the same thing, you know, it's the same stuff, you know, the same way. But that mix of the R&B and the jazz and big band and all that, you know.
Yeah. The connection that you and Rocco have, and I hope someday I can get Rocco here to sit with him, because another interesting way that he interprets music and his instrument. What is it that makes it different for you? Because you guys lock in. It's like such a magical drum and bass connection.
Yeah. You know, Rocco is a real unique sort of individual, you know. There's nobody like him.
Yeah.
In any part of his life, there's nobody like him.
As a player and a person, right?
Yeah, he's just really something, you know. And we just connected real easily. I mean, it was just natural, you know. Yeah. And to me, he like has radar. You know, he can lock onto a drummer like nobody's business, you know.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't know anything about music. He knows probably a little more now, but he, you know, he doesn't really care about that. You know, he didn't really care about learning. He just played his bass, and he invented his own little technique to play the bass.
So not really schooled or reading?
No, nothing. Could care less about it.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed one day, this is like early on, I had been taping rehearsals, and you know, I noticed that when I would play on my hi-hat, he'd play real tight, short notes. And then when I go to my right cymbal, he would play wider notes. Yeah. And then it was always this back and forth all the time, you know, sonically to kind of fit with what I was doing.
And you noticed that?
I noticed it. I said, Rocco, do you know that you do this? I explained what it was. And he said, no. I said, well, why do you do that? You know, and he said, well, it just seems like that's what I should do. Hello? Profound. I mean, people go to get music degrees to learn that. You know what I mean? And this is like, this is an intuitive thing. This is how he just felt music, and that's the way he was, you know. It was maddening because he just didn't care about it.
Yeah.
You know, he just did his thing, he just played, because, you know, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
So that was really an adjustment, you know, to do that. You know, unfortunately, we had to, for his benefit and for, you know, just the overall, the way that things were going with the band, we had to make that decision. But he's just quite a man, you know. He's influenced so many people, you know, and he doesn't even know it. He doesn't even, it's amazing.
Pretty powerful. So at this point now, the band is playing, you got a record deal.
Yes.
You're out there, you begin touring at that point?
I joined the band in July 23rd, actually, 1970. And a little interesting story about the date. We just recently went to Australia, and we were doing a Dave Cause cruise, playing, you know, on the boat, right? So I think we were in Melbourne. We played the concert. We did this little panel. You know, they interview everyone for the people attending the cruise.
Yeah.
They go around to everybody, and the host says, you know, well, tell people about what you know, how you got in the band, all this stuff. As it turns out, every guy had a date that they started the band that they knew that was important to them. Every guy. That date meant something to them. Yeah. And we didn't really realize it until we got around, everybody finished, and the host says, you know, you guys all have dates that you know you started, you know.
It's like a birth date.
Kind of. Yeah. Absolutely. Really important for everyone. We started rehearsing. They had this recording that they had signed to do, you know, for Bill's label, Bill Graham's label. Yeah. And so we started rehearsing. We recorded in September. So I joined in July. We recorded in September. We had already started doing gigs because those guys, it's like it's a moving vehicle. Yeah. And you step on, they don't stop, they slow down, they don't really stop, and you get on and you go. And so we started rehearsing recorded in September. It was out in November. How does that happen?
Yeah, that's incredible.
The recording we just did now took 6 years to do.
Yeah.
There it was like September, November.
A couple of months.
It's out, you know. And then we started, you know, doing gigs, touring. You know, we did, I think our first tour, hardly anybody came. I mean, that's why I met Billy Cobham, actually. We were playing at this place in Chicago on Rush Street called the Beavers Club. And Dreams came in there one night.
Yeah.
They were in town. They came in and they checked us out. They just happened to be there and they came and checked us out, and that's where I met Billy. Our first tour, nobody really cared. The records weren't anywhere, you know, but we're still playing. We're still wanting to do this, and we're playing the Fillmore and doing all this other stuff at, you know, at home. So then I connected with Doug Clifford, Cosmo. Doug Clifford, the drummer with Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah.
And I started giving him secret drum lessons at his house in Berkeley. They lived in Kensington up in the Berkeley Hills.
Yeah.
So I'd go up there and we'd do the lessons. He didn't want anybody to know that he was taking the lessons.
And you'd show him things like what?
He wanted to improve, so we worked on beats and reading, different,
Hand
you know,
stuff,
just
stick
stuff,
control,
you know, just
whatever you
playing, you know.
Yeah.
And then one day he says, "You guys interested in going on tour with us?" And this is Creedence Clearwater. This was the biggest thing going at the time.
Huge,
right?
Huge.
So they took us out. We did all of these you know, Coliseum arena kind of shows. We did all over the place. And we played with the lights on when people were coming in. I'm not kidding. Shreveport, Louisiana, we played and they were throwing Coke cans at us, full ones, you know. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, you know, kind of an interracial band, not accepted in a lot of places, playing the music that we were playing and all that stuff, you know. So it was quite an experience. And then I also, at that time, had met Michael Shreve, and we became really good friends, and I actually lived at his house.
He was up in that area.
Up in the Bay Area. He lived in Mill Valley.
Yeah.
Well, one day he says to me, "You guys want to tour with us?" And that, you know, Santana also, one of the biggest things at the time.
Absolutely.
Also.
And they had already played Woodstock, so already
that's all done.
That's,
you know?
so they're already on their way of doing their thing.
Yeah, they were like international stars,
Yeah.
you know, from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so fabulous thing for us. And so over the years, we've played with Santana many, many times in many different settings and done all kinds of different stuff. You know, we've done Montreux Jazz Festival in Switzerland with him, you know, all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
And so this tour was really amazing. You know, we did Fillmore East with Santana, Roland Kirk, us, and Buffalo Bob from the Howdy Doody Show. There's a poster somewhere. I'm not kidding.
I would love to find that poster.
And so Roland Kirk was, you know, one of the greats in the jazz world in those days. And Bill Graham, you know how he was.
Yeah.
He was educating young people, so he'd have all these different kinds of music on one show, right? My first time really in New York City, and Rahsaan's band, you know, they're playing, and during the performance, he says to the audience that they don't know anything about black music. The audience starts chanting, "Bull, bull, bull."
Oh, my Lord.
And at the end of the concert, the end of his portion of the show, he gets a standing ovation. I'm stunned. I've never seen anything like this before. It was so cool. I'd never seen that before, ever. It just completely blew my mind. Here, the little hippie dude from the Bay Area, you know, New York for the first time, you know, welcome to
hello.
You know, so it was just really, really great, you know. Moved on from there. We just kept doing stuff. Bill put us on some really fabulous shows. We did that Aretha Live at the Fillmore. We opened for them the whole weekend.
Aretha Franklin,
Yeah.
Here you are now playing with all these different acts that are out there, different styles of music, and the band is playing. How is the band accepted at this point?
Well, at home, we were, you know,
Huge.
we were rolling at home. I
Yeah,
mean, we
yeah.
did big venues. We even did like Winterland in San Francisco, headline Winterland,
Yeah.
you know, there, you know. And so we were kind of our worst enemy because we liked dope and alcohol. In our wiser days, we wanted to have a drug dealer as a manager.
Oh, jeez.
And so, this is true. And so Bill Graham was managing us.
Yeah.
Emilio, Mimi and Doc, you know, they would go. Steve Kupka, we call him the Doc, you know, Doctor.
Yeah.
Mimi and Doc, they went to see Bill every week to ask if they could get out of our deal, because we wanted to go with this particular individual who was the drug dealer.
Yeah.
And Bill would say, no, you're not doing that. And he would yell at him and say, good, I'll see you next week. And he just kept that going. And he wouldn't let us out. And so eventually we were able to get out of it by finding someone who made a deal with Bill. And the guy was, his name was Ron Barnett. He was a responsible person. And so Bill was letting us go into a responsible place, but he was also getting some money out of it, you know, because he had made an investment in us.
Yeah.
And so, but he was trying to save us from ourselves, you know, because we had auditioned also for Motown. And I remember we had stayed up all night, and we were really in a very Tower Power style, you know, loaded mood, crazy. And audition time comes, and it's Berry Gordy, Diana Ross, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And there was a couple other people, and they walk in and they listen to us, so we played. They liked it. And they wanted to do something with us. And so our drug dealer manager at the time, this drug dealer person, decided that he was gonna not let that happen because he wanted a specific kind of deal, and nothing happened. Nothing happened, you know. So just all in a day's work for Tower Power. You know? But eventually we got out of all of that stuff, you know, and got a Warner's deal with Warner's, 6 records with Warner's, you know, and that's where Bump City started and all of those recordings, you know.
And once that happened, that I think opened up a real wider international range.
It did,
Yeah.
it did, but you know, we're still, the drugs and alcohol thing was a big part of Tower Power in the early years, you know, and it was bad. So all the, I think I left 4 times, I think, because I just couldn't be around all these like gangsters and weird people, and you know, see us throw our stuff down the toilet. I mean, I couldn't see us do that. You know, it just was, it was hurtful. These were people that I cared about, family people. You know, because Tower is like the mafia or the Grateful Dead. You know, once you're in, you ain't getting out. You know, and so I couldn't stand it. So I had to make some changes. And
well, you did different things because you went on to play with people like Patty Austin, Natalie Cole, Larry Carlton, Gino Vanelli. I remember the Gino Vanelli days, and the recordings were fantastic.
Yeah, that was a really great thing. But, you know, I was never fulfilled in any of that. I liked doing it. You know, I didn't love doing it. I liked it. It was necessary and, you know, that kind of thing. But, you know, for me, my heart was always Tower Power. I never wanted to be in any other band. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. It's like when I first saw them, it was like love at first sight, you know. And when I was away from them, I just felt like I was a man without a country. Really, that's the way it felt.
Well, you might have been a man without a country, but you played some great stuff, the wishful thinking stuff.
Yeah, that was all good.
Fantastic stuff, you know.
Yeah, that was good. And that was probably the reason that that was good, is because it was an actual band. You know. When I lived, you know, here in Los Angeles, I did the freelance thing. I did that. I got to the point where I could read music that I'd never seen and make it sound like I rehearsed. You know, all of that stuff that the real Keltner and all the really great guys here can do, you know, interpret music for the first time, and it sounds like you rehearsed it, you know, and that's a skill. That's what the guys that do the studio work, that is a skill in itself. And some of them have that, that's their thing, man. John Robinson, all these guys, you know.
Oh, the Jim Keltners, the John Robinsons, the Jeff Porcaros, there's so many guys that had that ability.
Yes, absolutely.
That really is magic.
Yeah, that was their thing, the studio thing, you know, so cool. So you learn all of that, and I learned some of those things here, but I never felt comfortable in Los Angeles, you know. It wasn't a thing that excited me about music when I was coming up. I wanted to be in a band. I like the idea of you and me have a band, and we have it for a long, long time. We write songs together, we play gigs together, we eat together, we know our families, we hang out all the time. So it's a whole, you know, it's a hippie kind of deal.
It really is, but you know, it's such a wonderful camaraderie feeling of just security.
It is.
You know who you are working with, and you know everyone's creative level is at a very high level,
Well, I think it encourages that.
Yeah.
So when you work with people that you really enjoy, there's nothing about them that you would change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You accept that person's personality,
Right.
you accept their musical ability, everything. It just works.
Yeah.
And so that's what, you know, that's what I've learned with Tower, is that Tower is a collective, a real team. You know, we do it together.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
And so it's good and it's bad together.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so all the people that you saw on the stage last night,
Yeah.
the singer's the newest guy, but everybody else, they've been there like 10 years plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody stays because it's a great place to play music.
Yeah.
You get to create a space for yourself in the music.
Yeah.
Each guy has kind of a role that they play that contributes to the whole. And everybody is comfortable with that, you know. And so not everyone that we've had in the band is comfortable within a structure like we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we interpret our music differently. A 16th note is, you know, 16th notes, 8th notes, they're just interpreted a little bit differently than you would find in music school.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you have to be able to be comfortable in a small space, create in a small space. And if you can do that,
Yeah.
then the space all of a sudden becomes big
Opens
for
up.
you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what Tower is, you know, like we're just a team.
Yeah.
That's what we want to say.
Yeah.
That. I mean,
Yeah.
when you see a Tower show, you see a collective, a real team of people who work together really, really well.
And the team was obvious last night. Last night you were performing. Thousands of people were there.
They said like 10,000 people. That's what John Whitman told me last night.
It was probably more because it went way back to the point where you couldn't see the stage, but you could hear the band. When I started walking, it was unbelievable.
It was
So-
pretty. Yeah, it was quite a gig.
And here it is, 50 years of this institution of great music being delivered, and I'm looking at the crowd and I see 15-year-olds, I see 25-year-olds, there was a couple that were in their 80s that were there that grew. So it was just incredible to see
Parents
this.
raising their kids right is what it is.
Exactly, here it is. Exactly right. Exactly right. You went on. I mean, I've known you for years, David. You have always been a student of the art form. You are constantly studying and seeking knowledge, and you're constantly, you know, pulling from people to learn. It's an incredible open mind that you have. You have written an amazing amount of books and DVDs that are out available. That's incredible. And you're writing great stuff. Where do you think that comes from?
I admired teachers in the same way that I admired players.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
so I had teachers who, to me, I loved the way they did what they did, the way that they presented what they had to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'd watch them interact with other people, and I came to realize, man, I'd love to have that sort of impact, be able to do that, teach like that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. What a healthy attitude. It's just so healthy.
Well, you know, I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. I think some people are really well suited for teaching,
Yeah.
and some people are really well suited for playing.
Yeah.
Some people have a mix of both. I mean, it's a whole thing. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? You find your place in this thing that we all do together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then just start contributing to it, making it good, making it go like you do, you know?
It's so fun. As you're learning and as you're taking information in, you're bringing this information in, you're going through books, you're writing books. How is this helping you to change when you're sitting in with the band? Does that evolve you to a certain way?
Yeah, it changes all the time. And so after I had this train accident, coming back from that, there were some things that were missing after the accident. If I wanted to play, which was my goal, to get back to work and you know, get back to the band and get back to playing and doing the thing I love doing, and discovering that there were some things missing, I kind of had to re-examine everything that I was doing and kind of find new ways to do stuff, you know, to try to access the information that was there that I could no longer somehow get to.
Interesting.
So I had to find new ways to do it. I found that I had a disconnect with my right hand and my left foot all of a sudden.
So physically you felt that wasn't where it was.
I couldn't, there was something in my playing that was, you know, if you get all your limbs lined up like this,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it's like this.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out what it was. And then through some like movement therapies and different things that I had done, I discovered that I had this disconnect going on. I had just happened to be watching a Steve Gadd video of him at the Blue Note. He was playing, and he was playing his ride cymbal and his bass drum and snare, but he wasn't moving his left foot. It was quiet, it was still, and he's got all this going on. And of course, you know, we're taught that, you know, if you're going to play your ride cymbal, you got to have your hi-hat in there someplace. You know, that's kind of like a rule.
Yeah, yeah.
You know? I sent him a text, and I said, I want to talk to you, man. You know, when you got a moment. And so he calls me, and we started talking about it. I said, you know, I watched this video, and you're not using your left foot, you know. And he was aware of all that happened, you know, because he had called and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so he says, well, I don't use it because I'm looking for comfort. I don't need to use it, you know. And it's just all about comfort.
Interesting perspective.
I mean, it wasn't a rule, it's comfort, right? And so he wasn't bound by the rules that we get taught, we get ingrained in our head that you have to have this going when this is going, and if you want to have four-way coordination, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So he said, well, he uses his left foot as an additional voice to create different things. You know, I thought, comfort, man, that's, so all of a sudden, I started leaving my left foot, and all of a sudden, everything just started to relax, and I started to see, that's okay there, that's right, you know. And so I started using it in that way, applying that, you know, the left foot to things.
Yeah.
And so I just started rebuilding everything. I was really disappointing when I come back from that accident, when I first started playing with the band again, and realizing that, wow, I just got some stuff missing here. I don't know what to do. And it was really frustrating, you know. I realized, well, the guys don't care. Nobody's saying anything to me.
They're not
I think I had a
it.
conversation with Mark or somebody about it. I was kind of frustrated, you know. I said, well, don't trip on it, man. Just work on it, you know. And that's the way they are, you know. Just work on it. So they weren't yelling at me. They weren't saying anything to me. They wanted me there. I wanted to be there. So I just looked at it as a project, you know, rebuilding my playing and kind of doing things in a different way and that kind of stuff.
So you developed, again, your own comfort zone in how you felt at that moment.
Yes.
Well, that's really being in the now. That's really very powerful.
Well, what I discovered was that if I was really mindful, that I could keep track of what was going on. And so even like hyper mindful, you know, hyper vigilant, you know, which I never had to do before. I had a lot of automatic pilot things going, muscle memory and all of that stuff. But even now I just still struggle with certain things, certain parts of songs and certain sections of songs I haven't got to yet in the rebuilding thing, you know. It's like a huge remodel is going on, you know, the biggest kitchen remodel that you've ever experienced.
But it's an ongoing process, but it seems like all of the years that I've known you, you've always been in this ongoing process. So it's just a continuation of what you've always done.
Well, I mean, you know, things evolve, you know, and as you watch kind of your playing and you want it to grow and you see things that you're really inspired by and you kind of enjoy, you just keep adding to your ability to do things. You throw things away that you don't need, you know. And like the way that I played, you know, in the early years of Tower, it was fun and it was cool, but I don't like that anymore. Honestly, I don't care for it, you know. I don't even, because I don't want to be locked into playing those parts the same way that I did. So why not try to find a way to make the songs feel the same way, but change all the parts up so that it goes with how I view drumming today.
Yeah, but this is that evolved David Garibaldi student that's always there, and that's always a part of it.
But I think, isn't it always like that? I mean, if you really want to do something, you can't be doing the same stuff all the time. You know, everything evolves.
But that's a choice, and not many people have the confidence or the courage to make that choice. You've made that choice, and you have been an incredible example of that.
Well, the saying was that if you know you have a choice, then you own the outcome.
Yeah, exactly right.
I want things to be cutting edges. Cutting edges, I want to stay as far in the front of what I can do as possible at all times. That's what I like.
Fantastic. What motivates you?
Oh, you do? I mean, people that perform, people that are themselves, do creative things, that do things in a kind of a really kind of like, I don't know, I like excellence. That's another interesting thing too, because I've had to really change my perfectionist thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody told me perfectionism is actually the lowest standard that you can operate from, because you don't really allow yourself there, you don't give yourself any room to grow, because you have expectations on yourself that are unrealistic at all times.
Interesting.
And so when I started thinking about that, and so perfectionism doesn't really give you a way out. You're just beating yourself up all the time if you're not there where you think you should be.
Yeah.
And that's how I was. And so I've had to really change that and battle with that. And so when I see people who are really mindful and, you know, they're kind and, you know, that kind of stuff, that inspires me. I like that kind of thing. You know, guys that sometimes playing is almost secondary to the personality.
Wonderful.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
And I like players. I don't listen to drummers.
For dramistic things.
I don't really do that. I mean, there's certain guys that I really, really like, and then I kind of watch what they do, and then I want to meet them.
Yeah.
And then when I meet them and see what kind of people they are, then I'm total fanboy. Then I'm really into what they do, because I like their attitude about what they do.
Yeah, yeah.
If that makes any
Absolutely
sense.
makes sense.
You know?
Absolutely.
If you just understand that what you do is a process and just put your reps in, whatever it is, that a lot of cool stuff happens as a result. So I don't know, you know, just inspiration, it's all over the place. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You know, we have many musicians at all different levels and all different, you know, hobbyists and serious players that watch these interviews. In closing, David, what would you say to this next generation with the experiences that you've had, with your continuing on this roller coaster ride of this, you know, million gig march? It really is amazing.
Million gig march, right?
It really is. What would you say to them, this next generation, as a, you know, with those thoughts of your wisdom?
I would have to say, you know, the biggest thing for me, and that I encourage people to do, is to be themselves. You know, don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be somebody else.
Yeah.
I kind of like learned this way in the beginning. I wanted to have a signature in what I do, like my heroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I discovered was that they had that because they were being themselves. And you know, it's a little more difficult to do that these days, because you have so much media and so many things to look at, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When you and I were coming up, there was no social media, there was not the internet, you know, all of that stuff. We had running water, fire, the wheel, those things, right? We had that stuff. You know, learning was on a more local level, right? I mean, it was regional. It wasn't, if you had the chance to see somebody come to play, you know, in your area, cool, but you couldn't watch them on YouTube or anything like that.
Absolutely.
You know, and so you learn from the guys in your neighborhood, you learn from people around you. That's how we learned, right?
Yeah.
And so to me that was so valuable, because when you're listening to a recording, you'd have to visualize, you'd have to imagine, well, what are they doing here? And then you'd have to sit down and have to try to put something together. You know, so you right away you're using your imagination to create something for yourself. I remember I spent hours listening to Bernard Purdie and trying to do all this different stuff, and then when I actually saw him play, I realized he's doing it something completely differently. But then also the realization was that, wow, I put together some stuff of my own now based on what I thought I was hearing. You know what I mean?
Perception,
Yes. And so make up a way for yourself to live. Make up a way for yourself to play. Make up a way for yourself to think. You know, just create a life for yourself.
That is about as deep as can be. Fantastic, fantastic advice, David. Thank you so much. You always inspire me. I love you. Thank you so much.
You're the best, man.
Thank you so much. Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel, we'll see you real soon.